if I do get elected again for another 2 years, I think the park that's out on Millersburg Road, I think that's probably the biggest thing in my lifetime that would happen to Paris, because not only would that be kind of top-notch athletic areas for kids like you have, my kids obviously are, beyond that, but to actually have good soccer fields that aren't going to get, flooded out, and that'll be maintained, and they can have tournaments, which then will bring tourists and, people in that'll hopefully come downtown and shop and come to our restaurant, eat.
Now tuned in to WayOfWalton podcast, and I'm your host, Big J, Jalen Walton. Now, today's guest is special. She's one of the most hardest working businesswomen in the world. Not just the city, but the world, Craig. Have you ever heard that saying? It's from a movie. He says, not just the city, but the world.
That's the Friday after next, right?
Wow. Wow. And she's for the culture too. Okay. So yeah, I'm not just saying she's just the, hardest working businesswoman in the city and the world, and not know or not have seen her doing anything. I've seen her, at my son's soccer game. She's going around taking different photos of the teams from, each field, or, at the county fair when she was, on a food truck. Just different type of events I've seen her, working. So without further ado, I present to you Holli Gibson. Well,
nice to be here.
Yes. How you doing today?
Doing great.
Good, pretty good.
Pretty good.
So,
how about you?
I'm good. I just kind of wanted to talk about your photography, like how you got into it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, sort of to go back a tad farther, my degree was in merchandising, apparel, and textiles. So I kind of came right out of college and opened a gift shop, which really did not have, merchandise. Well, I mean, it had merchandise, but it didn't have clothing, which, is sort of the clothing and textiles, fashion merchandising degree. But there was another shop similar that had gone out of business, and I thought, okay, the city needs something to fill that void. So started that business. Then, you probably don't remember this, but there was a time that the entire downtown, they dug up. We've been going through this with all the street mess that's been going on for 3 years now. But back then, they opened up every sidewalk on Main Street to take all the power lines and put them under the sidewalks on Main Street. So again, you would have probably been in elementary school when that happened. But it was horrible. So business, just kind of dwindled, because you basically, it's almost like going across a gangplank just to get into each business. So, that killed everything. And at the time, my kids were little. I had always sort of, liked photography and, constantly taking pictures. My mom, when I was little, she would always set up a scene, for my sister and I, both of us are sitting in a little tiny little kid's rocking chair, and she'd make sure there was nothing in the background. She wanted it, as professional as possible. So I guess I probably got that from her. But I would kind of do the same thing with my kids, after church, they're all dressed up cute, even Ethan when he was a baby. I mean, I can remember putting a pillow on each side, making sure he was not going to fall down, and all that. And so anyway, I was always interested in that. And Dennis Hinkle, who was in town at the time that had a photography studio on Main Street, had bought a studio, I think like maybe in Elizabethtown. So again, there's another hole, and I was thinking, okay, I've got this big, huge building, you know, business is slow because of these streets being torn up. And so why not try to do like a service industry? Because the gift shop, you know, is only for people basically that either want something for their house or buying presents for other people. So we had this entire back, like when we bought the building, the whole back half of the building had rain damage. So the floor was just really, you know, bad. And in fact, this big rain came one time and the entire back of the building had collapsed. So that all had to be fixed. So at this point, you know, we're like, hey, we've got all this unused space. So I decided to buy out Hinkle, all of his equipment that he didn't take with him, and really just to kind of take my own kids' pictures and dabble in it, and then if it became a thing, then I would, you know, try to do it for other people as well. So we kind of finished the floor and put walls up. My husband and my dad were always really big on doing construction stuff. They kind of like doing things like that on the side. So we studded it up, put a bathroom back there, you know, and all that. And so I started, you know, taking friends of mine's kids' pictures, and then it kind of developed into business. So that went on for the next, I guess, 20 years. And then we sold the building because we also have a restaurant in Lexington, and we sold the building, and we kind of knew that eventually the restaurant in Lexington is just too far. That is one thing. When you have a business, you need to be close so you can actually be there a lot, and it's tough where we were located in Lexington. So we always thought eventually we want to do something here in Paris because this is our hometown. So there was a good piece of property available, so we sold that building to be able to put that down on where our restaurant is built now. So anyway, I moved the photography studio to my house because we, again, had an unfinished basement. So my husband, once again, you know, kind of goes with my ideas a little bit. He may not like it always, and he might grumble about it, but he normally will do it. But so he studded it up and, you know, put the drywall in and all that. And so now I have a nice studio at the house. And I don't have the space that I had down at my building on Main Street because that was just a huge building. But I've gotten kind of like the lift system where, you know, you push a button and the backgrounds go up and down. So that way I can have a smaller space but still have access to all the backdrops and things that I had in my bigger space.
Yeah, so on photography, so when did you know, like, maybe I can do this like full time? Start your own?
Well, you know, I already had the gift shop, so I still for a while did both. You know, we had the gift shop in the front, and then had the photography studio in the back. And then another thing, I kind of feel like I'm good with sort of rolling with the punches, because then Hamburg opened, and I'm just going to tell you at that point, downtown business died. So the same type of gifts and things that I carried, you could go there, and you could go out to eat, and, you know, people could get their groceries, and because, you know, we don't have a grocery store. And so Hamburg absolutely killed the downtown again. So it's like we had just gotten through that whole project, got the sidewalks back, and, you know, it looked really nice. And then Hamburg opened, and then, you know, new shopping center, Kohl's, you know, all that kind of stuff, Target. And Target at that time, like before that, Target didn't have like the big home area like they do now. And it was just, you know, the Targets before that one just had, you know, I don't know, more things that weren't like pretty for your house and stuff. And see, that's kind of what mine was called, Holli's Housewarming. And so that's kind of what I specialized in, was things for the home. And then all of a sudden, you got big box stores like, you know, Target, and I think, I forget what it's called now, but it's another big one. used to be one called like Carolina Pottery, but it's all home stuff. And I can't remember the name of what it's called now that's in Hamburg. But all those stores, Kohl's opened, you got bedding, you know, kitchen stuff, all that, which is what I had. So I then decided, okay, well, so the gift shop's not doing so well. So then I kind of changed it to more photography because that was building up. So, you know, I kind of did senior pictures. I did Paris's school pictures for years. There's a preschool in, it's kind of between Winchester and Lexington called Beginnings Christian Day School. I do all of their pictures. Nursing pictures for BCTC. I do like their composite pictures. So there's a lot of, you know, ones that I kind of are coming up. YMCA soccer. I started doing basketball last year. So it's kind of like on the calendar, I constantly have a big thing coming up, but then I can do, you know, little things in between.
So how hard was that, you know, because you started your gift shop business and just to just have the knowledge to know that okay, it's not working out, so I kind of have to do something else.
Right. And you know, when you have a building payment, just like when you have a house payment, you know, you got to do something to pay that payment. So I kind of was always looking, you know, okay, well, if this isn't working out, what could I do that would still bring it in? Because I didn't really want that to be a burden. You know, my husband basically paid the house payment and all that at home. So the building, I always kind of looked at that as almost like my retirement. You know, one day I would sell the building, and then even if I wasn't making a huge salary, as long as I could pay all the bills, keep it going, you know, still, we kind of were those people that like, I would kind of do the extras, like he would pay, you know, the house payment, the insurance, all that kind of stuff. And I would pay, you know, my car payment. I'd save money for vacation. I would buy all the Christmas presents. So anything at the house extra, you know, like you're gonna repaint rooms or, you know, get a new rug or whatever, I would always do all that extra stuff with what I brought home. And, you know, sometimes it was a struggle and sometimes, you know, you would do really well. In fact, before Hamburg opened, I mean, that gift shop did really well. I was able to, you know, pay down a lot of the debt of the building and inventory and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I feel like my husband and I have always, you know, we're like the little engine that could, you know, you just keep going.
So how important is it to have like a, you know,
spouse that also
that kind of helps you with that?
I think it's very important because, you know, it's kind of hard to go off on your own if you're going to have to pay all the bills, I guess.
Right.
And so luckily, you know, he's always had a good job and was able to handle the house payment and all that. So, I mean, I guess I give him a lot of credit that he didn't say, no, just go get a job where we know what your check's going to be every month, you know. He allowed me the levity to kind of go and do things that I enjoyed. And on the another thing with that was being able to have my kids with me all the time. So we didn't have to pay babysitters because, you know, I could bring both babies with me. And then toddlers, you know, they hung out with me all the time. And then when they were in school, then they'd come after school, the bus would drop them off. So that was nice. And then as things got a little bit bigger and I could afford an employee, then I always kind of had somebody that could, you know, come in for me so I could go to the spelling bee or, you know, the school field trip or, you know, whatever. So it was very nice. I feel like we've always worked hard, but, you know, we've also been able to do things with the kids and not miss anything too.
Still be a parent. So you think it's important to have like an exit plan, like when you're starting a business, or?
Yeah, you probably need to really have, well, first of all, have that business plan to start with too. You know, kind of look at what your expenses will be, what you think you're going to charge, so therefore what can come in, you know. And then like, especially if you're gonna rent a place or, you know, buy a building or something like that, then, you know, you've also got upkeep and insurance and, you know, all that. That building, I mean, when we bought it, it was in horrible shape. Like I told you, you know, like the ceiling was basically caving in the back. It was like that old iron or I guess just metal ceiling tiles. So we basically put a wall up, again, back to my husband and my dad being good about, you know, being able to put walls up and all that kind of stuff. We put a wall up to where the worst was behind the wall, you know, and then, like I said, when we could afford it, then we finally finished all that out in the back. And there was an apartment upstairs too. It was probably one of those buildings that back in the day, whoever owned the shop lived upstairs. And it was kind of neat, so we kind of did that a little along too. It had been where the stairs had come down, you know, from the middle of the building, so I'm sure that they could just go up at any time. But at some point, that building, they had taken the stairs down because that building was actually two separate buildings. It was like one long, skinny, two-story building, and then there was a wider L-shaped building around it. So at some point, I think it was like in the 40s, that building, like the man that owned the L-shaped building was the son of the man that built it in the 1800s. And we bought the building from him when he was in his late 80s. So evidently at some point his parents had bought the little thinner two-story building, and then when they decided to retire, they rented it out to the A&P grocery store, and they knocked the walls down. So that way it made it a bigger, you know, wider building, and that's probably when they took those stairs down. So we had to have stairs put back up that would go out to the sidewalk so somebody could rent it, which did, you know, help with the payment too.
So you had somebody rent upstairs to kind of
Yes.
help pay for the...
Yes, pay some of that building payment.
Okay, so you went from gift shop, photography. So what kind of made you get into the restaurant business?
You know, that's kind of crazy too. It's like we were coming back from vacation one summer, and you know, it's about lunchtime. Been driving 6 hours. Like, okay, where's everybody want to go eat? And saw on the side Chick-fil-A. So you know, we go off. Cannot find Chick-fil-A anywhere. I mean, it must have been miles down. So we like keep driving past this little Mexican restaurant. And who doesn't like, you know, Mexican food? But it was just it had kind of a catchy name. It was called Salsaritas. And so we went in and we're like, oh, well, this is cool. And this was before like Qdoba and Chipotle were real big. That, I mean, I think I didn't even know probably what those were at the time. And so, you know, you went in and you saw the food being made in front of you, and it was reasonably priced and tasted really good. So my husband, being in banking, had always he's always kind of been on the commercial side, like commercial lending. So he had been, one of his first jobs was as a bank examiner for the FDIC. And then that kind of transitioned over to working for a bank as like their CFO. So he would always look at loans, and he always said it seems like people that did really well owned franchises. Like the bank that he worked, someone had owned at the time like 7 Applebee's, you know. And at the time, Applebee's was fabulous. So, you know, so they've since kind of gone downhill. But so he always kind of had in his head, you know, he wanted to own a bar or a restaurant or something like that. And at the time, my son was probably early high school, and he's like, oh yeah, that's fabulous, you know, let's look into it. And we had looked into like Jimmy John's and Fazoli's and things like that before, just to see, okay, what does it take to, you know, get into that business. And none of those had ever really worked out, or we couldn't afford it, or, you know, whatever. And Salsaritas being a smaller, more regional franchise, it's out of North Carolina, the pricing was a little bit better. You know, it was something that we thought we could swing. And so we just kind of kept inquiring, and they were being bought out, so, you know, they wouldn't do anything until the new owner came. And then we, I guess, went down and had a meeting with them, started, you know, decided we wanted to do it, and thought, you know, this is just a really cool place that Lexington doesn't have. We originally wanted Paris, and they would not put it in a small town. So we're like, okay, well, maybe if we put it in Lexington, eventually they'll let us put one, you know, here. We had looked at the spot in Hamburg where the vinaigrette is now, which would have been fabulous, but we let people from North Carolina who know nothing about Lexington put us where we are now. And, you know, the place where vinaigrette was already had a patio, so you wouldn't have had to have done as much construction, you know. So unfortunately, live and learn, you know, when you go, you need to go with your first instinct and kind of fight for what you want, because we would have been in a much better location had we done that.
Yeah. So was you all kind of just like, just wanting to get a building, or they was kind of like?
They kind of would do, like, they had somebody they call sort of like a site manager come down, and they also had contacted a real estate agent. So it really was kind of messed up from the beginning, because we also had a manager who was George Jackson, who's manager of Sonic now. And so my husband and I and George drove around behind the realtor and the guy from North Carolina. So how crazy is that? It's going to be our money that we're having to invest, you know, but yet they're not talking to us about the spots.
Right.
So, like I said, it was messed up from the beginning. We have learned a whole lot since then. But, so we kind of got put in a location that ended up not being very good. And so, kind of struggling with that, that's when we decided to start doing food trucks. Having to sit back and think, okay, you know, we got this loan, we got to pay it off.
Yeah.
Don't want to go bankrupt. So it's like, what can we do from here? Since it's not a good location, was not making enough money to pay all the monthly bills. So that's when we went to, which is going on next weekend. It's called the Crave. It's called, what is it? It's like a food and music festival.
Yeah.
And so somebody had told us about that, and Stephen Swisher here in town that has Happy People Coffee, he used to be a restaurant consultant, and somehow we had kind of hooked up with him, and we're talking to him about it. He had something to do with starting that way back when it first started. And so he was telling us, yeah, you know, if you do well out there, it's a lot of good, you know, you get a lot of good promotion by doing it. And it's basically you serve like little tiny, like you wouldn't serve like a whole 2 taco meal. You'd probably serve a taco, and people buy tickets, and they can try beers and wines and things from different places, and then kind of, you know, small portions of food. So we set up a tent, and you know, advertised it well, and I mean, we had people crazy. I mean, it was like a non-stop line.
Yeah.
And they were promoting those green egg grills, and so they let us use that. So we were like we were cooking chicken out there, and it was just like non-stop. We would run out. So we're like, okay, well, the food must be good, because people are coming back and coming back.
Yeah.
So it can't be the food, it's got to be the location. So that's when we decided to look into getting a food truck. And so that winter, you know, we kind of looked around, and we found somebody, I think he's maybe in Versailles, that will build out, like he'll go buy these really, you know, old step vans, and then he kind of converts them. So we did that, and then it was like kind of full bore, trying to get into every event that was going on, and so that's kind of how we paid the bills for the next, you know, little bit.
Yeah.
So we kind of added a truck the next year, We were to the point by 2019 that we were running 4 food trucks.
Wow.
So, you know, that paid the bills, you know, kept it going, got the name out there a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, and then here we are. We've got 2 more years on our contract with Salsaritas.
Wow. How important is it to reinvest back into your business? Like once you know, get your profit, just to put it back?
I don't know, because I don't know that we ever made a profit that we could actually say, ooh, it's a profit, we're making money now. It was, in Lexington, the rent is so high, $8,000 a month. So can you imagine, how many tacos do you have to sell to pay for $8,000 a month rent?
Right.
So, anyway, our goal was just to kind of keep it going, and yeah, we hoped at some point to get it profitable, and, you know, but, then COVID hit. So, you know, right when you think you're doing, you know, oh wow, you know, look, it's going really great.
Yeah.
And then you think, okay, it's getting to the point that it's going to be profitable. Then COVID hit, shut restaurants down, you know. So then that was a whole new ball game. I swear it's like we've never been able to rest, you know. It's just always something coming up. So then we had to try to get a website going so people could order takeout, and then see how we could keep our employees, because, you know, we didn't want them to be out of the job.
Yeah.
And so actually food trucks kept going. I mean, the events didn't go, but people from neighborhoods would call, and they would start booking food trucks to come, like every Friday night or Saturday at lunch, or, you know, something like that. So actually we were not running 4, but luckily we were able to run 2 and keep all of our employees, so we didn't lose anybody. I think one girl that was sort of new quit because she got a job like at an apartment complex. But other than her, that's the only person that we lost. And that wasn't on our side, that was, you know, her decision. So we were able to keep all of our employees. And, I wouldn't say that we were able to pay, you know, the rent on time every month, but we were at least not able to, or we were able to, you know, keep it going. And
that's kind of big, because a lot of companies just let their, you know, employees go.
right. But you know, if you have good employees, you don't want to lose them.
Right.
And I guess we all know that now. A lot of people didn't come back, you know, sadly. So we've had the same employees for a long time. I think it's probably one, he's been with us probably since the 1st December. Like we opened in June. I think we hired him probably that December. So he's been there with us almost from the beginning. And then probably the rest of them, at least maybe 6 years. So that's a good thing, because, you know, you got, like I said, you get good people, you want to keep them.
Yeah.
So
you open not one Mexican restaurant, but 2. So talk about your second one. How did that come?
Well, the one here, of course, you know, we sold that building, and then we did talk to Salsaritas about opening here. They still were not really interested in doing a, you know, small town. So we just kind of created our own, and then, you know, tried to do things differently, you know, obviously, you know, things that we've learned through the years, and it's also, we kind of wanted it to be something that you could go there for breakfast, because we have the coffee shop. You could go there for lunch and dinner with the restaurant, and then you got your evening entertainment with Maiden City Brewing. Our food trucks had gone to Maiden City Brewing for years, so we had a good relationship with them. So we kind of got them on board to rent out that space. So we really built it with a brewery or a tap room in mind. So the, you know, kind of the way the building was designed, which actually my son designed it. We were on vacation. He lives in Salt Lake City, and he's just always been very artistic. And he has like one of those architecture programs, like, so he got it for their house. They have like an older house, and they're thinking about, you know, like adding out or up, or, you know, something. And so he had that program on his computer, so we just kind of sat there like, okay, well, what do we think we want the front of it to look like? What do we want the footprint to look like? And so he actually designed it all in that program. And so we kind of, so what's out there now was basically his initial design, but we had to give an architect, you know, you got to have a certified architect for the state to sign off on it. So So anyway, so it's kind of like a whole family project.
Yeah.
And then the coffee shop, we had originally thought, okay, we wanted it almost like a strip center, and we would rent 2 spaces. And somebody had told us, you know, that even Frank's Donuts was looking for a place for a drive-through. And we're like, oh, well, we've got space for a drive-through. And I reached out to them, never heard back from them. So then we were kind of like, well, how hard can it be to open a coffee shop? So that was kind of my daughter. She kind of was looking into that. You know, she was college, and you know, college kids are big into Starbucks and stuff like that. So she kind of did all the research on the coffee drinks, and I'm big on Grater's ice cream. So you know, I went looking for how we could get Grater's ice cream in there.
Yeah.
And then we kind of put the bakery component, so we knew we wanted to hire somebody to do baked goods, so we'd have like a bakery case that would kind of complement the coffee. So, and that's the fun side, because you know, that's totally different than what we're used to. So, of course, we ended up hiring a guy who had worked in coffee shops for years as our manager. So that's a good thing, considering, yeah, we did not have that experience. So, you know, he got in there and trained all of the, I don't know why, but all in the coffee shop, all of our employees are female.
Yeah.
So he got all those girls trained, and, you know, they know what they're doing. And most of them are high school kids. A couple are you know, young ladies that are college age. And so it's going well for the moment. We're just waiting to get the drive-through going.
So let's transition a little bit to you're running again for
City Commission.
Yeah. Talk about that. Like, what made you want to get into?
Kind of the beginning, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but that Stoner Creek Country Club.
Yeah.
I call it the debacle. But where the city at the time decided to purchase the land and then give it away for $1, I think, to a private entity. And I guess I've always been more of a rules follower, and I'm like, okay, how are they using taxpayer dollars to do this? You know, that just did not sit well with me. And, you know, again, being in the downtown, having a tourist attraction like that would be great, but it seemed to me that the city didn't take into account the what was going to happen with Stoner Creek. You know, that's our water source. And the Planning and Zoning Board told them, you know, they didn't think that was a good location because of that, because, you know, they really needed to look into that more. So the Planning and Zoning kind of shot it down. Well, the city overruled it. And so they bought it for $750,000 and then gave it away. And, you know, again, why are our taxpayer dollars going to a piece of property they're going to give to somebody who then is going to make a profit on it? Makes no sense. I mean, hey, if you want to do that, then give me a piece of property. You know, give you a piece of property, and let you build a business there. So anyway, that's kind of what got me going and wanting to be on City Commission. So I actually ran that year as a write-in candidate, and decently well. I think I got like 550 votes. The next person was like at 700. So not too bad for not having my name on the ballot. But so anyway, I had to wait 2 years after that to get on, or to run again. But it's been a learning experience. It's been, you know, a year and a half now. We've kind of gone through the city manager that was there when we first came in, and he was, you know, in that deal with the, which, you know, I didn't think was right. So anyway, but he left last July, and so there's been some turnover, but we have really found a good manager now. I think things are going to be a little bit smoother, because last year, I mean, it's supposed to be a part-time position, but whew, it was way more than that. So having all of that, plus restaurant, plus photography business, last year was pretty rough. But now that this new city manager's there, and you kind of think, you know, the city went with an assistant city manager through December, and then he quit, he retired. I think he had been planning on retiring before the city manager quit in July. So the city went basically 6 months with no manager. But, and you know, they did a really good job. There's really good department heads, and they kept everything going. But having somebody in charge of day-to-day operations, you know, to kind of keep it running smoothly. I mean, I have to say, I have not gotten nearly as many texts and things over the last month since she's been there, because before it's kind of like some fire that has to be put out nonstop. So
you can focus on other
yes. So I really think that, you know, if I do get elected again for another 2 years, I think the park that's out on Millersburg Road, I think that's probably the biggest thing in my lifetime that would happen to Paris, because not only would that be kind of top-notch athletic areas for kids like you have, you know, my kids obviously are, you know, beyond that, but to actually have, like, you know, good soccer fields that aren't going to get, you know, aren't going to get flooded out, and you know, that'll be maintained, and they can have tournaments, which then will bring tourists and, you know, people in that'll hopefully come downtown and shop and come to our restaurant, eat, you know. I think, and it's supposed to have a 4,000 seat amphitheater. So, and I don't know if you've heard of that barnyard in that venue that's in Bath County, but it's crazy. It's only got like 1,500 seats, but I mean, they have sold out concerts nonstop. Now, it's not like A-listers, but still, it's, you know, it's you know, different older, you know, bands and things like that, or new and up and coming, and they're packed all the time. So here we are in Paris, you know, and it's supposed to be a bigger amphitheater, and it's in a good location, because in there, evidently, you have to kind of go on these old, you know, roads to get to it, and, you know, we've got that nice double highway going out there now, so.
I heard they wouldn't have any basketball goals.
See, I heard that, and I think what they were, and they are now, they've changed that. But what I had heard about that is that it's not like, you know, we have our parks here. So our parks like Garrett Park, Legion Park, Chief Reed Park, those are supposed to be kind of your little community parks where kids can go and play on playground, which I know Garrett Park doesn't have any playground equipment right now. But I don't know, does Chief Reed? I hadn't been there in a while.
They have basketball.
Okay, you do have basketball though. But I know there's no like little kid, you know, like
I like the boogie bar stuff.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
They didn't have it at Chief Reed.
Okay, because Garrett Park used to have that, and it disappeared. I don't know what happened. But so anyway, but the community parks are more so people can walk to them. Kids in neighborhoods, you know, can go and play basketball and stuff. The park out there, you know, like your son when he's 12 would not be able to walk out there, but he could walk, you know, to Legion Park, or he could walk to Garrett Park or to Chief Reed. So I think the thinking in that was, let's have, you know, the things that where you can do a pickup game of basketball or whatever in the community ones, and for the big one that you'd actually have to have a ride out there would be actually more like for soccer games, baseball games, you know. So instead of it just being, oh, just go out there and play basketball, to actually have, you know, tournaments and things like that. Because we don't have that. We do have, in the community ones, we have basketball goals. We don't have tennis anymore at all, you know. Paris and Bourbon, I don't know if Bourbon has tennis courts or not, but I know Paris doesn't have them anymore, because that used to be at Garrett Park. When I was in high school, when my kids were in high school, they would practice at Garrett Park. But they've totally bulldozed those down. So now they have to go to CMC-CLA. So again, how can we have, you know, any kind of like the district or the regional tournaments when we don't have anything available? So with that, both schools would be able to have,
Yeah.
you know, their soccer tournaments and their baseball tournaments and things like that with bigger stadium, you know, where people can actually sit and not have to bring your own chair.
Yeah.
I don't know was soccer popular at all at Paris when you were there?
I mean, people play, but I don't know if it was as popular. I don't think so.
Well, my kids both were soccer players, so we could never have the district or the regional tournament, even though it's supposed to go, like there's only 4 schools.
Yeah.
So we could never have it, which means you couldn't make money. So
Mhm.
like Paris could never make the money on the gate
Yeah.
or the concessions because we didn't have a place to have it.
Oh.
So when that is there, Paris can be in the game,
Yeah.
sort of, you know. Same thing with band. Like Bourbon has had all those band competitions, so they can actually bring in money by having those competitions.
Yeah.
Paris, we don't have a place to have it.
Right.
You know, over there, there's not enough parking or anything, so you can't have band competitions. So there again, we're losing the ability to raise money for our teams and for our extracurricular activities. Can't have track because we don't have we don't have the, what's it called, the regulation size, yeah. So see, we can't do all that here because we don't have the facilities.
Yeah.
But once that park's open, we can.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that's gonna be like the biggest thing
Yeah.
in my lifetime to happen in Bourbon County if that actually comes to fruition. And the city commission has a little bit to do with that because the county wants us to be involved.
Yeah.
You know, they want the city. In fact, they have said that if we could bring infrastructure out there, like the plan is to have a water tower out there, which would also help Millersburg, and also bring city water and sewer out there. Because, you know, you can't have a big park like that and not have, you know, good running water and everything. So they want us to kind of be involved and maybe even, you know, eventually they'd sell us half, so it would truly be like